week, for me, there's been a little bit of focus on what could have been in regards to fragrance. I spoke in my last video about how I've been able to obtain a sample of a fragrance I've wanted to try for quite some time now. And the reason it's been so difficult is because this is one of those limited edition releases. There was only 500 bottles made, and obviously when things are produced in that manner, they become more difficult to acquire or even just to smell. So it got me thinking about fragrances that I have smelled, and this is not really restricted to limited edition fragrances. This is basically restricted to fragrances that have been discontinued. And I was thinking today, there are probably a handful of fragrances that I have smelled before and I remember really, really enjoying. For whatever reason, at the time, I decided not to get a bottle, or I'm just trying to think. There was probably one occasion where I might have been able to get a bottle at the time, but didn't. The other fragrances that I thought of were discontinued or not available. So I thought it'd be a little bit of fun to mention 4 fragrances that I wish I could smell again, and in one case that I wish I could smell, period, because I've never smelled it, but I've been so curious to see what it's like. I'll start off with the ones that I have smelled and that I really enjoyed at the time. But these two, when I first smelled them, were no longer available by then. The first one is from Lancome. This is Cœur de Lancome, and I remember. I have no idea. I can't remember where I got a sample of this. I think someone may have sent it to me. And I remember smelling this fragrance and thinking that this was one of the most plush, luxurious leathers that I had smelled up until that point. And I think even since then, and I'm talking about 3 or 4 years ago, I don't think I've smelled a leather that I felt was ever as plush and luxurious as Cœur de Lancome. And unfortunately, at the time, once I'd smelled it and once I decided how much I liked it, it was unavailable. It's been discontinued. I can only guess, given that Lancome still produces fragrances, that one in particular was not a great seller and got discontinued for economical reasons, or maybe that whatever they used to make it. The other reason might be that whatever they used to make it, materials became unavailable or restricted, but this would seem like a long shot given how often brands of that size would reformulate anything that was selling, at least anyway. So if you have smelled Cœur de Lancome and are familiar with anything that is even closely, remotely similar to it, let me know in the comments, because I'm happy to try out stuff that might get close to some of these unicorns that I'm going to be talking about. So one of the best leathers I have smelled from Lancome. The next one was, when I did smell this, a friend of mine actually sent me a miniature version of this fragrance because it came in a full bottle, limited again to 500 bottles. But there were also miniature fragrances, miniature versions made of it as well. And this one is from Tauer, and I'm not a massive Tauer fan. I haven't been impressed with more recent releases. I did own L'air de American for quite some time. I think that's a really good fragrance. But outside of that and a couple of others, the brand in general have not really captured my imagination like they do for other people. But there was this fragrance that was sent to me, and it was a limited edition, and my recollection tells me that it was to mark the 25th anniversary of the beginning of the brand. And I'm talking about Les Années 25. So I was like captivated immediately from this scent. I really loved this beautiful, bright ginger and citrusy opening in the top of the fragrance pyramid, and then it dried down into this really gorgeous, silky iris and vanilla combo as it dried down on your skin. And even today, I struggle to think of anything that is similar to Les Années 25. I know a little bit later on there was another one released, Les Années Bis, B-I-S, and I have not smelled that one, but from what I read, it is slightly different, and some reviews also say that ginger opening is a bit turned down or not there, and that's kind of one of the aspects of Les Années that I really, really enjoyed. So I used up my little mini bottle, and it's been gone ever since. I would love to find out in this particular case, ask Andy Tauer if I ever get an opportunity, why that particular fragrance, he only made 500. I understand it's to commemorate an anniversary. They all sold out, and whether it'd be possible to bring it back or not, given that it seemed to be quite popular. It's got very good ratings on all the fragrance databases. So, yeah, let's see what happens. But I really enjoyed that one. The third one that I have smelled but has since been discontinued, and this is the one that I could have purchased because it was still being sold at the time, and it's from Tom Ford. Now, this one might seem a little bit out of character for me because it is a kind of gourmand style fragrance, which is not what I'm really into these days. But I remember really loving Noir Femme, Tom Ford Noir Femme. Now, this back then was in a similar bottle design. You can see it up on the screen, to the men's version, or the one that's marketed to men, Tom Ford Noir Extreme. And I remember smelling the Femme version, comparing it to the Noir Extreme, and they had a similar gourmand accord in it, and it was based on the Indian dessert kulfi. And I was familiar with Noir Extreme, and I did like that one, but there was something about the Noir Femme that I thought was a little bit more complex, more interesting. There were more distinction between top, middle, and base. I liked how it developed, and I just thought it was more complex and more interesting, and just slightly, I remember it being slightly less sweet than Noir Extreme. And if I could turn back time, in the words of the immortal song, I would grab a bottle of Noir Femme. I recently sniffed Noir Extreme in the department store, and I couldn't really tell if it's changed much or not, but it still didn't grab me enough to think that that's a viable substitution. So, yeah, who knows? I don't know if Tom Ford will bring that one back, or reinvent it or repackage it in the way he has done with other fragrances, but I really enjoyed that one. The fourth fragrance that I'm going to mention, the fourth and final fragrance I'm going to mention in this video, is actually one that I've never smelled. And I follow a bunch of people on Instagram, and probably I think maybe one or two of them still have this bottle because I see them post occasionally. And I'm talking about a flanker of one of my all-time favorite fragrances, which is Dior's Fahrenheit. I've smelled various flankers. I've smelled Aqua Fahrenheit, Fahrenheit 32, I think it was, in the white bottle. But the one I've always wanted to smell is Fahrenheit Absolute and the bottle looks amazing because it's this kind of darker shade of the original Fahrenheit bottle. But what really interests me in smelling this is how the note pyramid would suggest that it retains some of the key characteristics of Fahrenheit, like the violet leaf and some of the florals. But this one seems to be a bit more resin heavy, and in particular, the note of myrrh is supposed to be one of the main attributes of this fragrance, and that combination of that original Fahrenheit profile with these added resins really piqued my interest when it comes to really wanting to smell this. This is one I've kind of given up on ever being able to smell. Francis Kirkjian, if you're listening, instead of some of the other stuff you're doing, maybe consider bringing this one back. I'm not a big fan of Fahrenheit Parfum either. Didn't do much for me, that kind of vanilla, that extra jolt of vanilla and the slight booziness on the Fahrenheit. But Fahrenheit Absolute is definitely one I would love to smell. I want to hear about all your non-existent, i.e. no longer available unicorns, ones that you wish you could smell one more time, repurchase, or ones that you've heard about that you really, really want to smell that sound interesting. In some cases, it can be, it can be a similar parallel to that old adage of never meet your heroes when it comes to fragrances you've longed for from afar and then smelling them and being slightly disappointed. But they're the four I wish I could smell. One for the first time and the other three definitely again. So let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. As always, I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.